Today, we're tackling one of the most common questions we ask ourselves. How much should I be saving and investing? It's something we all wonder about, whether you're just starting out or already on your way. We'll go through each age milestone and figure out where your finances should ideally be. Some of these numbers might shock you. They sure surprised me when I first saw them. But don't worry, in the end, I've got a little trick to help you fast-track your progress. Let's start with your 20s, the foundation stage. So, here you are in your 20s. You've probably just graduated, started working, or maybe you're hustling through an apprenticeship. Your paycheck? Probably not setting the world on fire yet. Here's a stat that might sting. The average 20-year-old in the UK has less than £1,000 saved. In the US, it's a little better at around $1,800. Honestly, it's a tough spot. But don't panic. Your 20s aren't so much about the dollar amount in your bank account. It's about building solid financial habits. Here are 3 things to focus on in your 20s. 1. Pay off high-interest debt. High-interest debt is like that annoying friend who eats your food and never pays you back. If you've got credit card debt, that interest can easily grow faster than your investments. So, before diving into heavy investing, make sure to knock out those high-interest debts first. Trust me, paying off debt is one of the best ways to keep your hard-earned money in your pocket. 2. Track your spending. I thought I had my finances under control until I started tracking my spending. Turns out, I was spending way more than I realized on coffee and impulse buys. Just knowing where your money goes puts you miles ahead of most people your age. It's like turning on a financial flashlight. Suddenly, you see all those hidden expenses. 3. Build a small emergency fund. Aim to save up at least 1 month of living expenses. If your bills, rent, and groceries come to around $200, that's your goal. Once you've hit that, start investing. Even if you're only putting $10 or £10 away, just start. The earlier you begin, the more time you give your money to grow. I started investing with what felt like pennies in my 20s. It didn't seem like much back then, but looking back now, I'm grateful I got started early. Compound interest works like magic. Even small amounts can snowball into something much bigger over time. Your 30s. Building momentum. By your 30s, ideally, you've got a bit more financial breathing room. According to experts like Fidelity, by the time you hit 30, you should aim to have 1 year's salary saved. So if you're making $50,000 a year, you'd want $50,000 saved across your savings, retirement, and investment accounts. Now, don't freak out if you're not quite there yet. I'm not either. The key is to understand where these guidelines come from and why they exist. The idea is to give your money enough time to grow and work for you. Let's break it down. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year. If you invest that $50,000 and keep adding just $500 a month, with an average 8% annual return, you'd have around $1.77 million by age 65. That's the power of compounding working over time. In your 30s, here's what you should focus on. 1. Save and invest 10 to 20% of your income. In your 20s, you were figuring out what you wanted to do with your career. By your 30s, you should start doubling down. Try to save at least 10 to 20% of your income, or more, if you can. The earlier you invest, the more time your money has to grow. 2. Avoid lifestyle inflation. When you start making more, it's easy to start spending more. Nicer clothes, better car, bigger apartment. But try to resist the temptation to match your lifestyle to your income. If you keep your spending the same while your income increases, you'll be able to save and invest so much more. 3. Work towards being debt-free. If you've got student loans or other debts, focus on paying them off as much as possible, except for a mortgage. That's usually fine to keep. Imagine how much more you could invest if you weren't making debt payments every month. Your 40s. Compounding gains. By your 40s, things are getting serious. You've had some time to build up your savings, and now the goal is to have 3 years of your salary saved by age 40. So, if you're earning $60,000 a year, you'd ideally want $180,000 saved. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of money. But the key here is that compounding is doing a lot of the work for you. Let's do some math. By age 30, you should have had 1 year's salary saved. Let's say that was $50,000. With an 8% return, that $50,000 grows to about $107,000 by the time you're 40. So, the remaining amount you need to save is about $43,000, which means putting away around $360 a month. See? When you break it down, it's a lot more doable. Here's what to focus on in your 40s. 1. Max out your retirement contributions. Aim to invest at least 15% of your income towards retirement. These are likely your highest earning years, so it's crucial to take advantage of that. 2. Be smart about taxes. This is the perfect time to sit down with a tax advisor. They can help you maximize deductions and make sure you're not giving more to the government than necessary. 3. Balance your financial responsibilities. You might find yourself juggling your kids' education, saving for retirement, and maybe even helping aging parents. It's a lot, but planning ahead helps you manage everything without neglecting your future. Your 50s. Preparing for the finish line. In your 50s, you're getting closer to retirement, and this decade is all about wealth preservation. Fidelity recommends having around 6 times your salary saved by now. If you're earning $60,000, your target is $360,000. But here's the big thing. You're not just focused on growing your wealth anymore. You also need to start protecting it. Here's how. 1. Reassess your investment portfolio. As you approach retirement, you'll want to reduce the risk in your portfolio. You don't want to experience a huge market dip just when you're about to retire. Consider shifting some investments from stocks to bonds or other more stable options. 2. Turn your investments into income. Now is the time to think about how your investments will generate income during retirement. This is where an advisor can really help. They'll walk you through things like ensuring your savings last, how to handle inflation, and health expenses. Your 60s and beyond. The home stretch. By your 60s, you should be thinking about retirement seriously. Ideally, you'll have around 8 times your salary saved. So, if you're making $70,000 a year, your goal would be $560,000. Here's what to focus on as you approach retirement. 1. Review your investments. At this point, it's all about making sure your money lasts through retirement. You don't want to be taking huge risks with your portfolio, so shift more of it into income-generating and low-risk investments. 2. Have a clear retirement plan. Know where your income will be coming from: pensions, savings, investments, etc. Make sure you've factored in things like healthcare, long-term care, and what you want to leave for your kids. Now, before I wrap up, let's get real for a second. These numbers are helpful guidelines, but life doesn't always fit neatly into these boxes. In fact, nearly half of people in the UK have less than £1,000 saved, and the US isn't much better. So, if you've got anything saved right now, you're already ahead of the curve. The most important thing? Start where you are. Adjust these guidelines to your own situation and keep moving forward. Let me know in the comments how your savings journey is going and what your next financial goal is. I'd love hearing from you. And if you want to know why your net worth skyrockets after saving your first 100K, don't miss my next video on the magic of compounding. It'll change how you see your financial goals. Make sure to check it out.